7 years on from the war, the virus, I have built something I call home. Some might describe it as an outlook, a fort, a refuge, perhaps even an open prison. But I call it home. The home on the hill. I'd always had vague plans about what to do if a situation like this had occurred. But they'd been unformulated plans, undeveloped, unacted upon. So when the time had come, when the unimaginable had taken shape into reality, I was as unprepared as anyone else, as stupid and as panic-stricken as the next man or woman. I think I just got lucky. North Wales seemed as good a place as anywhere, and anywhere out of a city was a good choice. But the Civil War followed us all down the A roads, as did the simultaneous worldwide epidemic. As the saying goes, we've all got a plan until we get punched in the face. It's now been 6 years, nearly 7, since I last saw a human being alive. I have no hope anymore of seeing anyone ever again. To the extent that I now feel confident to light a fire in the grate in winter months. An act I resisted for the first few years, for fear of attracting attention to my place on the hill. I have a shotgun, I have a taser, and a well-rehearsed route out of the back garden and up through the woods if I ever get the metaphorical or physical punch in the face from the front. At the top of the woods, I have a well-hidden escape bag, and a mile further on an almost invisible B road, I have a backup car hidden, fueled up, occasionally run up to keep it in working order. I never expect to use it. I have watched through my telescope every day now for human life. I have seen packs of roaming wild dogs and running wild horses. I've seen foxes, cats, even a wild boar. But of another human, not a sniff. I was safe here, as safe as anyone ever could be, encamped up a steep, unmarked road, almost invisible from the B road far below. It was highly unlikely anyone would find me here, and if they did, well, I had a plan, didn't I? Through the telescope, I'd been watching a sparrowhawk in the far field just below the line of the woods. A movement to the right caught my attention. Adjusting the scope, I lost my place on the landscape momentarily. By the time I had refocused on the woodline, it had strode across the field and through the open gate and out onto the B road. At that moment my whole world fell apart. A fear I had never known the likes of flooded through every pore of my body and soul. I watched appalled and fascinated at the same time as its robotic movements aped human ones. It had obviously been damaged at some point, as its left hand was absent, and it walked with a leaning to its left side that would make a human look slightly ridiculous, but in its own form it managed only to increase its sense of menace somehow. But how was this possible 7 years on? How had it recharged itself? Surely its power reserves would not have lasted this long. Or what did I know? Braver souls than me had fought these things hand to hand, had killed them, and been killed by them. What had I done? I'd fled. Maybe if I'd stayed, fought alongside, maybe this, maybe that. The point is, I hadn't. Appalled as I was at the sight of it, I couldn't tear myself away from watching it. As ridiculous as it was, being at least a mile away from it, I pulled the blinds down, so they rested upon the body of the scope. I didn't want to be seen by it. God no, just the thought of that horrified me. I watched as it made its slow, clumsy way along the road. Soon, it was at the junction of the unmarked road that led up the hill to this place, to my sanctuary. It stood motionless for a while, and then looked all around, as if weighing up its options. Of all the places in the world this thing could be, I thought, and it was here, The thought of it angered me, infuriated me. How many square miles of earth existed in this country, and this thing had to be stood here? In the vicinity of my sanctuary as opposed to all the other damn places it could be? Why? I willed it to continue up the road straight ahead, and away from here. Grateful that I hadn't set a fire in the grate that morning. In my mind's eye, I pictured it dipping out of sight as it passed the old barn beside the line of oaks never to be seen again. But in reality, it chillingly turned to its left, started its way up the road towards me. I instantly ran through what I knew about how to defend myself against these things. Shotgun. It would fall and get back up again. But if I aimed well, I could take out its sight. Its missing hand pointed at something larger being used against it at some point. Perhaps when the armed forces had finally and belatedly switched sides, something far less civilian than a farmer's shotgun had been turned against it. Maybe I should just run, plan B, out the back. The back road, the car, why not? But that would mean leaving her behind. I couldn't do that. I couldn't leave her. I spoke to her softly before cradling her in my arms. Since she had lost her sight completely, I'd been in the habit of startling her if I touched her first, without first making her aware of my presence via speech. How could I have even thought about leaving with her still here? How? What sort of plan B is a plan that leaves behind the vulnerable, the most loyal? It's a nothing plan. It's meaningless. It's gathering smoke on a shovel. Impossible to do. I carried her upstairs onto the bed and collected my thoughts. At one time in the past, I had barricaded that lane up to the house, made it considerably difficult to pass one way or another. But it had later occurred to me that the mere existence of an obstacle gave evidence of something or someone to be reached beyond it. The steepness and curvature of the lane itself would be enough, I thought, to deter any casual interest in exploring further. That in mind, I dismantled the obstacles, something I regretted terribly now. I estimated that without the need to rest like a human would require, the automated enforcer would be here within 10 minutes at the outside. I raced downstairs. I moved as best I could the few large heavy objects I had there, moved them against the front and back locked doors. Once again I silently scolded myself for not making better preparations for such a moment as this. I'd had 7 years to plan better. Why hadn't I? I picked up the shotgun and a box of cartridges and made my way upstairs again, this time to the bathroom. From there, through the top unfrosted window, I would see it arrive at the side of the house when it finally did so. I have no idea why it took so long, but it was another 30 minutes before it appeared from around the corner of the path up to the house. I physically shuddered at the sight of it. Damaged it may have been, but it still looked formidable in contrast to the human form, taller, wider, and known to be faster than human. It elicited a fear in me I had never known. Taking care not to be seen by it this close up, however, I could see that it was damaged far more than I had first realised. Apart from its missing lower arm, it was seemingly missing all of its fingers from its left hand, and wiring flayed out from a puncture hole in its back, cascading down to its thigh. This close-up, I gathered the opinion that this thing was in reality far from still being an efficient fighting enforcing machine. But even so, it failed to diminish my fear of it to any significant degree. I considered a quick shot out of the window, but decided to wait to see its plan of action It scanned its surroundings, and I had to duck out of view at one point as it raised its head up towards my position. Then I heard it try the locked back door. My heart somersaulted at the sound of the handle being turned. I suspected it was more than capable of breaking the door down without too much difficulty after all. Would it? After a moment or two, I heard it walk away and off towards the front of the house. I moved as silently as possible to the front bedroom, and peering out, only as much as I dared to do so, watched as it emerged from the side of the house. It leaned against the door. I gave a gasp as it lowered its position, and then raised the letterbox to peer inside. The actions of a nosy neighbour, in the body of a ruthless, murdering, state-controlled machine. Despite my fear, I almost laughed out loud at the ridiculousness of the situation. It once again made its way to the side of the house. Moving position once more, I watched it as it stood motionless for a minute or so. And then it moved away, started off down the path. The path that would take it back to the junction with the road. I held my breath, unable to believe that the danger had passed quite so quickly, and so relatively easily. The sense of relief and joy was palpable. But it was then that Lucy barked. I watched it all that night, as best I could in the darkness of the Welsh countryside. It made its way continually from front to back door, to the outhouses, in and around the greenhouses, the allotment patch, and then back to the house again, constantly trying the handle of the back door each time it reached it again. I wondered how long it would continue its seemingly unending procession around the house. Hours? Days? Weeks even? And what would I do? Cower here, with Lucy in my arms for as long as it continued? If I wanted to eat, well then sooner or later I would have to move downstairs, and it would almost inevitably see me at some point then. And what then? It was 5:30 a.m. when it finally broke its cycle of circling the house. From the top bathroom, I watched as it leaned its weight against the back door, not in an effort to push it down, as I might have feared, but seemingly in a defeated, broken manner. I physically jumped back in fright as it spoke. Why? It said. Just the one word. Quietly. Clearly. It was 10 minutes later when I picked up the sight of it again, through the telescope from the front of the house. It stood again at the junction of where the path up to here met with the B road. It stood motionless for a moment, perhaps deciding which way to head. And then, just before it started moving again, east this time past the old barn beside the line of oaks, and out of sight forever. I swear to you, oh, and I swear on everything that is holy to me, then I saw a tear roll down its face.